All right, guys. So this video, we're going to try something a little bit different. It's a little bit different because it's digital. But before I get into that, let me just explain. As you guys know, we have been working on building our new physical Los Angeles and Santa Monica city out of Lego. And it's coming along great. I mean, we love how it's turning out. We've got the freeway there. During the last update, we showed you guys downtown. And even on the last update, we also showed you guys how we've been converting to lighting, which is really exciting. I mean, we really love how it's all coming together. There's some really, really cool features with the city. And honestly, it's just looking so cool. And truthfully, we'd love to keep building this as fast as possible, but it's super, super expensive. If you take the lighting out of it, that's one thing. But the physical cost of Lego bricks is insane right now. They have shot up over the last 2 years, and it's just getting more and more difficult to order parts on time for city update videos each week, just because of the sheer cost in which it is to build these skyscrapers and buildings and just everything else. I mean, if you take, for example, the Aeon Center that we built last month, that was, I believe, almost $1,000 to put the whole thing together. And that was just because we went with all new bricks for it, and we really focused on the details. The skyscrapers aren't usually that much, but they're definitely several $100s. And the buildings themselves, if they have interiors, are also very expensive. Not to mention, set costs are through the roof. So we started thinking, well, what if simultaneously, while we build our downtown Los Angeles, which we're still going to do, what if we also built a digital city? Because the great thing about digital is you basically can build endlessly without any costs. And really the only barrier to expansion is just how strong your computer is, right? Like if you have a lot of RAM, if your computer can handle the graphics. And I think we could get around at least some of that in the beginning by doing groups within Studio so that it's not focused on all the individual bricks. I need to kind of research that. But I think it could be really cool to explore building a digital city outside of our LA and New York City builds. The hope, obviously, is by doing this, we will be able to provide you guys with more videos and more content updates, and we can kind of wait for instruction sales and YouTube revenue to come in to then buy more bricks, which is how we fund the city. So in theory, we could basically build a city on top of a city or a city simultaneously with our other city, and it could be a lot of fun, and it could create some different builds that otherwise we wouldn't be able to show you guys. So what we did was we started by building the roads, and the goal for this is to build it pretty modular. That way we can build it in sections. And so we were doing the classic Mills road system, tweaked for the modern road plates, which came out in 2021 that Lego put out. But the beauty about this is it creates a very, very modular design. Now, the downside is that it's on 32 by 32 rather than 48 by 48 base plates. And that can get a little bit tricky when you're doing the intersections, which we're going to show you guys in a moment. So with that in mind, we've kind of been putting together some road sections that all fit on 32 by 32 base plates, and the buildings themselves will be on 32 by 32 or 16 by 32 as well. And that should create a very nice city grid that's easy to lay out digitally. So once we had created one road section, we were able to then multiply it after we had grouped everything together. And you can also ungroup it to then pull it apart or pick it apart in this situation where we wanted to create an intersection. At first, we thought we might just modify the section we'd already built, but then started to realize it would probably be easier if we just kind of started from scratch for the intersection. So the goal was to kind of line it up using the Technic pins to make sure that the road's aligned, but then build the intersection from scratch. So we put another road section on the other side just to make sure it lined up. And then it started to come together and kind of figure out how that intersection would in fact lay out. And as we were laying it out, we realized, well, we also need to put in a crosswalk on that new section because it's just going to be too small of a space on a 32 by 32 base plate to put the crosswalks for all four sides on that intersection plate. So we built it into the other plate, which will basically be like a T section that goes into the four-way cross, which all of that will make sense in a moment. But let's finish this section first. We have to fill this awkward gap here. That is 7 studs wide, so it's a little too wide for traditional plates. So we're going to build an elevated, basically 2-plate width elevation to then put the tiles on top so it'll be flush with the roads. And it allows for good spacing with the additional line tile. So once it all comes together, it almost looks like it's supposed to be there and it wasn't built custom. So once I change the color here, see, it looks pretty good. I mean, that's pretty solid for a intersection. And all we got to do now is fix the sidewalk so that the minifigs can go down onto the crosswalk pretty easily from the elevated sidewalk. And to do that, unfortunately, the plate underneath wouldn't work. We had to swap that out and then modify everything a little bit underneath the existing tiles, delete those out as well. And then our favorite thing to do is add the curved slopes because it creates a nice little sidewalk effect. So we'll add some plates underneath for strength. And then actually we need one more for each side. And then now we can add the finishing tiles and then the sloped curves to create the proper sidewalk entrance. And you can see it starts to really look great when it all comes together. And so that's that section. And again, it's going to feed into this middle part, which will then be the four-way intersection. So let's figure out how to build this. I think we're going to start with some road plates down the middle. These won't be tiled because it'll be the middle of the intersection. It'll all just be dark bluish gray. So we'll put those on and then tile them. And now you can see, now we got to figure out how to connect it to the other road. And I think first we're going to build the sidewalks to make sure that we have those in the proper width. Basically, there's going to be four corners here since it's a four-way intersection. So we'll get these built. And the nice thing, since it's kind of a mirror image, you can basically just duplicate those and then bring them down to the south end. And that is one of the really nice things about building digital. You can actually build a lot quicker because you can just grab multiple bricks, or you can duplicate things a lot quicker than you would in real life. And you can also Control Z or undo builds really quick, whereas in real life you have to get the brick separator, pull everything apart. But we also realized it was really important to put the stop sign line or the traffic light line on this section of the road, as well as to not mess up having just the two plates on the other side. That'll all make sense again in a moment once we finish this and show you guys kind of how it all lays out. But basically the stop line and the crosswalks for the, I guess, north-south will be on this plate. And then the crosswalk in line for the west-east will be on those other plates that we just built. Again, I'm going to show you all this in a moment when it's finished. The other beauty about building mills and kind of building this technique is that if you do end up lighting up your city like we've been doing lately, it's a lot easier to run the wires underneath because there are voids under the road plates, which make it a lot easier to hook everything together versus the old Lego roads, which are just one plate high. And I think especially if you're going to go the lighting route, it definitely makes sense to go to the mills route. So the next important part of the intersection is filling in these remaining gaps. And the best way to do that is to build separately next to it. And you'll see why in a second, so that you can actually lay out the parts and then kind of just scoot them in. It's a little harder to do on the digital program if you don't have studs for it to connect to. So you have to get kind of creative when you're placing things on their side. And if you don't know what we're talking about in any of this, we have free tutorials on our channel about our road work, so you guys can try it for yourself. It makes a lot of sense when you actually build it in real life. But if you are familiar with it, then this all should hopefully be making sense for you. And basically what we're doing here is just filling in the gaps with bricks on their side, which are the exact same height as essentially 3 plates high, or the height of the roads as we're building them. And so what we're doing is filling in with a mixture of bricks, but then also plates and tiles. And you'll see this will all come together flawlessly in just a moment. Road building this way especially can definitely be one of the more tedious routes to go. And it can be very frustrating when you're laying out a big city because it's a lot of work. It's also very part intensive. But when it all comes together, it does look really good. And I'll say too, if you build it in a modular way like what we're doing here digitally, it makes it a lot easier to lay out your city and make adjustments down the road, no pun intended, when you need to change the layout or add in a building or maybe realign something. And another thing too that we noticed while laying this out is we had to fix the white lines that go on the sides of the road. Again, these aren't included in just the standard Lego road plate system. You actually have to build these in. Creates a really cool effect when it's done, but it is part intensive, unfortunately. But we're almost done with the four-way intersection, I should say. It has crosswalks on 2 sides, and then the other 2 sides will be contained on the other plates adjacent to it. And it'll all connect together with Technic pins. All this will make sense in a moment, but you can kind of see it coming together now. All this really left to do is just add the curved slopes, and the tiles on top to finish the sidewalk. which can get a little intricate since you're going two different directions here. You have the north-south and the east-west, and you got to make sure that everything fits together properly. So this was a little bit of trial and error, but it was coming together right. And again, we had to fix the white lines throughout the intersection. But again, the nice thing about the software is you can just copy and paste and delete. It makes it a lot quicker when you're building things. Also, for this first video, we're not doing any background music. Just want to see how it goes without background music. But if you guys think that that would be nice to have it in the future, let us know. We can definitely look into some that are a little bit longer. But for now, it's just going to be a voiceover. So would love any feedback in the comments if you guys have it. But for this section of the video, we're just finishing up tiling this four-way intersection. On the next portion of the video, we're actually going to start building the first building for the city, which is really exciting, and that's coming up in just a few moments. But I wanted to show you guys how we're laying the roads out because we get a lot of questions from people in the comments on YouTube asking how we do our roads. So this should give you a really good idea of how we do it and how we make it modular and how we make everything come together in a really easy, cohesive way. We turn these into groups. So now you can see it's one big section that you can copy and paste, and you can lay your city out digitally and then build it physically by ordering parts through Bricklink. So if I bring it all together now, you can see how everything lines up. And so now we have a really good stretch of road. And if I just copy these sections and then paste them on the other side, we now have a really big section of road, which is pretty much ready for buildings after attaching everything together and making sure it all lines up as it should. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to make a modular road section that is city ready and not very much time at all. And the great thing about these is now we have sections that can fit together and you can expand upon and you can tile them together for even more stability. So we have a pretty good layout so far. Obviously it's very basic. It's just a giant T. Truthfully, that is a four-way intersection. So in the future it can be brought down the other side as well. But for now, let's get started on building the first building, which is going to be really exciting. We're going to start that with a base plate as well, but we need to build a base to raise it up to the same level as the rest of the street, and that's what we're going to work on right now. Remember, the goal, or I guess I should say the first part of setting up this new city is creating these template or grouped parts together that create the base of the city. So we've built our different road sections, which we can now easily copy and paste into different configurations. And now we're building a base for a building, which we can basically save, copy and paste, and use for future buildings so we don't have to redo all the work. So right now we're going to build it. And again, it's the same height as the street, just without the tiles. And that is the foundation for the building, as you can see. So we'll copy and paste it, save it into another area, and create it as a group. And now it's its own base to start building the building. So this building is just going to be freehand. It's not based on any building in particular. Kind of have some ideas in mind of what we want to do with it. The goal is to probably put a market or a store down at the bottom and then put lofts or apartments up above. I'm thinking we just do like a little entryway right here on the left. So I'll leave that open. And basically what we're doing now is laying down plates that are going to be where the walls and windows go. So I'm just creating the shape of the building. This is what I do with a lot of our buildings just to make sure that it lays out properly before going vertical, and then start adding the windows, doors, and other features. And so as you can see, it's going to be a grocery store style on the bottom. So big windows, floor to ceiling, so people can see in and see all the produce. Right now laying it out white, but I think honestly it might look better in tan. Yeah, I think we're gonna go tan with this one. I know a lot of our city has white, but I think for this one we're gonna go tan. And for an added feature, we're gonna do like a dark tan stripe around the building, which is pretty consistent with a lot of grocery stores. It's definitely gonna be more of a like urban high-end grocery store. Definitely want to give it, that vibe and that feeling. However, we're not going to do any interiors in any of these buildings. The reason why is just purely to cut down on server load or load on the computer. If we built the interiors, it would be so many more parts and pieces than the computer really needs to handle. So we're just going to do exteriors. We're going to do a simple white floor interior for this one, which honestly is like pretty standard for a grocery store anyway. So we'll just tile it white, leave it at that. If you guys were building this in real life, or if you want to actually make it in real life, you could certainly add all the details for the interior, but I just don't want to overload the computer. So I'm just kind of showing you guys laying out a city with the exterior for now. So we'll go back to the exterior and keep building that up. And again, you want to be consistent and carry kind of the design throughout. So the dark tan line, and then there needs to be signage. So we're going to build in a little spot for future signage, where basically you'd find the grocery store signage. We'll do green, kind of like a Whole Foods, a little more high end. I'll just keep going around and building the base of the building here. Definitely need like an access door in the back. And then the back, obviously there's going to be more buildings in the future, so we don't need windows back here because those are going to be connected to it, or well, I should say adjacent to it. So no need for windows. And in real life, inside the store, that's just back where all the shelves and everything would be, so there wouldn't be any windows anyway. And again, we're just carrying the design throughout to match. I did figure out that the dark tan doesn't come in the 1x12, so I had to swap those real quick. And then we're going to actually go one level higher, one brick higher, just to add a little bit more light to the bottom. So we're doing some trans bricks above the windows just for a little bit added detail. And again, the goal with this is going to be store down below with apartments or lofts up above. So we're definitely going to need some support in the middle. It's a pretty wide span to do out of Lego. So we found the middle part, and then we're going to add some bricks for support. We're just going to do them in white just to kind of match the interior. And now we got to tile everything. We're doing this as a modular so that if we were to actually build it, it could be lit up in the future and you could access all the floors and the interiors. So we're going to make it so that it has modular functionality, which basically just means making it so that it can detach from itself at each floor. Future videos for the city, we're definitely going to add more street details and like traffic lights and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to show you guys, how we typically design our buildings and kind of what it looks like from a just start to finish standpoint. But I also want to show you guys how easy it is to build a city digitally. And then if you really wanted to build it in real life, you can buy the parts through Bricklink and then go vertical in real life. But if you are tight on space or don't have the money for, hundreds of dollars for these modulars, then going digital is a great alternative. So now we're basically building the floor that sits between the bottom market. As you can see, it's now covered, and the actual first floor of the condos or apartments. So we're gonna start laying those out. I don't want them to be wall to wall the same as the grocery store. The grocery store would obviously have a much bigger footprint. So we're gonna do a little bit of a cutback on the top here. And I think we should probably do some outdoor patios and kind of make it, much more livable. So I might edit the line closest to the street. We'll see in a second. For now, let's get the windows figured out. And again, on this side, there's probably gonna be a patio, so that might have to be a door. And actually, what if we follow the same kind of lines as the first floor, but just make it a little bit set back? So we'll do kind of double windows, create a little outcrop. Basically, the units would be split down the middle, into two separate units with kind of like neighboring porches or balconies. So you have the one balcony there, and then you have the one in the back, which we'll make. And the windows will line up. Now we'll build some walls. And again, we're not going to do the interiors because I really don't want to overload the computer. I want to be able to maximize how many buildings we can do and make this city really cool. So the less bricks, the better, but we'll definitely put some detail and probably more so in the streets. And the exterior of the buildings, definitely no interiors for now. And again, this is the great thing about going digital is it's a lot quicker to build and kind of try things out because you can copy and paste. So it definitely saves time, especially when you're planning things out. We often plan things digitally and then build them physically just to make sure it'll all work as expected. But I like how this one's coming out so far. Again, this would just be like your typical, mid-rise modular that you'd find in a lot of buildings, in a lot of cities, excuse me. And so, yeah, the second floor is coming together. Let's create these little balconies. I think glass would be pretty cool. And we'll do that with the trans. I guess they just changed the name of it to trans black. They used to be trans brown. We'll do a big balcony down here for this other unit. As we go vertical, we're going to probably cut that back. We're going to see in a moment. But we'll create some railings. And again, just kind of staying consistent with the coloring and, making sure it's just cohesive from the street view. But you can see how big this patio would be for these guys. It's definitely one of the better units. We'll tile it. You could probably put like a grill up there and fire pit, some other cool stuff. And then on the smaller balcony, tile that one as well. Maybe that just is one unit. I don't know. Maybe there's no need to split it. You could just do one big unit. And we'll tile the entrance for the grocery store as well. Okay, so we've got a pretty good layout. Now let's keep going up. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make it modular so that all the floors detach. And basically the goal here, again, is just to make sure that everything's held together well with these tiles. And then from there, you can build the floor above it, kind of just following the same layout, essentially. So we'll do that. We'll make it modular, build the floors out. And I realize that we are already 20 minutes into the video, so I'm going to speed this up real quick. Basically, as you go up, each floor matches, so there's really no need to get repetitive and show you guys. So here it is with the floors built out. As you can see, the balcony on the right is cut back, but the back looks the exact same. We'll add one more floor, and I'm actually going to probably chop this and turn it into the roof because I think it's already tall enough as is. We'll add some roof details. Nice roof line. This one's just going to be flat. It's easier to build flat, obviously, with Lego and online, or I should say digitally. So for these builds, at least for now, we're going to keep them pretty boxy. Might get a little bit more sophisticated in the future. But it's looking good. We'll go ahead and tile it. I think we'll go dark. Yeah, I'll do dark tan up here. And then we'll bring it all the way around. Copy and paste. Again, great when it's digital because it makes it easy. And we got these little gaps we've got to fill in real quick. We definitely need more roof details. This is something that we always do in our city. We always try to make the roofs actually look realistic because, you know, from a human height, you're looking down on the roofs pretty often. So you definitely don't want them to just be bland and boring. So we will add some more plates up here with a different color to make it look kind of like gravel. And then let's build some HVAC or AC units up here as well. And we go with a pretty simple design for these usually. If you guys have built any of our buildings before, if you've watched a lot of our videos, they're pretty easy to make. It's literally just plates, round plates, and round tiles. But it creates a really nice effect that looks pretty legit. I know some builders out there get, very detailed on the roof, and I think it's great. I think that's awesome. Really adds, a whole new level of detail up there. It's just not something that we typically do because it just gets expensive. And honestly, I think just going simple like this is good enough, but it's personal preference at that point. So we've got those up there. Let's now add some more street details. We'll start by adding signage to the outside. So this would be like a market sign or like a Whole Foods is right here type of sign, kind of pointing to the market down below. And obviously we can't add stickers in studio, but basically that would say like market, show you guys, down below where the market is, and it would be on both sides of the building. We'll turn this into a group so that now it's not individualized bricks. And then we're going to edit each submodel and put in some trees to just liven up the street a little bit. So this is one of our tree designs that we use throughout our city. It's a little bit more compact, which is great, and it's lower part count. And they look really good. They're very strong. So we'll add these here. Add them kind of on both sides. It's always a little finicky adding trees for some reason, but there we go. Looking a lot better. And then let's also now add places for minifigs. One thing that I dislike about Bricklink Studio is building minifigs. I wish that they had like pre-built ones already ready to go that you could just drop in, because it can be very, very tedious building each one by hand. But anyway, maybe that'll come out on a future update. That'd be pretty cool. But we've got one guy here for reference. Definitely going to add more to the city and more details as we go. This is just the first video. Kind of gives you an idea of scale, but I mean, that's it, guys. I mean, this is the first layout of the city. We've got our building there. Obviously, if it was, in real life, you could add more details to the interior, but it lays out pretty good. We've got our streets. Those are looking good. And I think there's, a lot of opportunity for the future. So make sure you're subscribed and following along, and we will see you next video.